You know that sound when ceramic hits tile? That sharp, shattering crack that makes the whole room go silent? That was the sound of my life falling apart, or maybe, finally coming together, on a rainy Tuesday morning in Seattle. I'm Maya, by the way, and until that moment, I was just a 26-year-old waitress at the Rusty Spoon, a diner that smelled permanently of bacon grease and old coffee, located in that weird part of town where the tech skyscrapers cast long shadows over the crumbling brick walk-ups. I was working a double shift, running on 3 hours of sleep and a stale bagel, trying to save up enough cash to fix the transmission on my '08 Corolla, which sounded like it was dying a slow, painful death every time I turned the key. My life was a series of small, exhausting loops: wake up, serve eggs, dodge the landlord, study for my online graphic design classes until my eyes burned, and repeat. And honestly, I didn't think much existed outside of that loop. I didn't think I deserved much more than that loop. But then there was Table 4. Table 4 was reserved, unofficially, for him. Arthur Sterling. Now, if you live in the Pacific Northwest, you know the name Sterling. It's on hospital wings. It's on the engineering school at the university. It's associated with Sterling Aerospace, a company worth billions. But the man sitting at Table 4 didn't look like a billionaire titan of industry. He looked hollow. He came in every Monday and Tuesday at 8 a.m. sharp, wearing suits that cost more than my annual rent but wearing them like they were heavy armor, his hair silver and perfectly cut, but his eyes, man, his eyes were the saddest things I'd ever seen, like grey oceans with no shore in sight. He'd order black coffee and dry wheat toast. He'd open a newspaper but never really read it. He'd just stare out the window at the rain, looking for something that wasn't there. I was his regular server, mostly because the other girls were intimidated by him, but I felt this weird kinship with him, this shared quietness, so I'd pour his coffee, I'd make sure his toast wasn't burnt, and occasionally would trade small talk about the weather or the traffic, nothing deep, just human noises to fill the silence. So, this Tuesday, I'm rushing, right? The diner is packed, the cook is yelling about a shortage of hash browns, and I'm swinging by Table 4 with a fresh pot of coffee. I lean in to refill Arthur's mug. "Top you off, Mr. Sterling?" I ask, and as I lean over, the top button of my uniform blouse, which had been loose for weeks because I kept forgetting to sew it, pops open. Just the top one. But it was enough. My necklace swung. A miracle. Incredible. Welcome home. But his eyes were scanning me, dissecting me, calculating. Over the next few weeks, things got weird. Arthur was amazing. He wanted to know everything. He wanted to send me to art school. He wanted to make up for lost time. But Gavin was always lurking. He'd make little comments when Arthur wasn't around. "You know, it's going to be hard for you to adjust," he'd say. "You're a waitress. This world, it's complicated. Maybe you should take a cash settlement and go live a quiet life? For your own good, of course." I ignored him. I was getting to know my dad. But then, the accidents started happening. First, the brakes on the new car Arthur bought me felt spongy and failed on the driveway. I only stopped because I hit a hedge. The mechanic said the line had been cut, but Gavin insisted it was just old tubing. Then, I got violently ill after a dinner Gavin prepared. Food poisoning, he called it, but I was the only one who got sick. But the breaking point, the moment I knew this wasn't just paranoia, was when I found the file in Arthur's study. I was looking for a book to read, and I knocked over a stack of old papers on the bottom shelf. A manila folder slid out. It was labeled Ransom Negotiations, 1998. I opened it. I shouldn't have, but I did. It detailed the kidnapping. The kidnappers had asked for $5 million. Arthur had paid it. He had left the bag in the drop spot. But the police report said the bag was never picked up by a gang. It was picked up by a man matching the description of a family associate. I felt sick. I kept reading. There were notes from a private investigator Arthur had fired years ago. Notes that said, "Suspect inside job. Brother's debts cleared 2 weeks after drop." Gavin had debts. Gavin had orchestrated the kidnapping to pay off his gambling loans. He never meant to hurt me, probably, just stash me for a few days, get the money, and return me. But something went wrong. Maybe he got scared. Maybe the heat was too much. So he dumped me in a park in a different state and left me to rot in the system while he lived in luxury on my father's dime. I grabbed the file, my hand shaking, ready to run to Arthur, who was down at the boathouse. I sprinted out the back door, across the wet lawn, the rain stinging my face, Seattle rain, always the rain. I burst into the boathouse. "Dad! Arthur!" You have to see this. But the boathouse was empty. Or I thought it was. He's not here, Lily, a voice said from the shadows. I spun around. Gavin was standing there, blocking the door. He wasn't smiling anymore. He was holding a heavy, iron boat hook, tapping it against his palm. He went into town, Gavin said, taking a step toward me, leaving us all alone to have a little chat. I held the file behind my back. I know, I said, my voice trembling but loud. I know what you did. You took the money. You took me. Gavin sighed, like he was disappointed in a slow child. I had to, sweetie. Do you know how expensive it is to be a sterling without the CEO salary? Arthur was tight with the purse strings. I just needed a loan. I was going to bring you back, I swear. But you were a loud kid. And the police were everywhere. I couldn't risk it. So I improvised. You ruined 20 years of our lives, I spat at him, backing up until I hit the workbench. You killed my mother with grief. Collateral damage, Gavin shrugged, closing the distance. And now, you're back, messing up the succession plan. I can't have that. Arthur is old. He's sickly. When he goes, the company is mine. Unless you're here. So, history has to repeat itself. A tragic accident. Slippery docks. Poor girl couldn't swim. He raised the hook. The iron hook whistled through the air, aiming straight for my temple, and in that split second, the waitress in me, the girl who had carried heavy trays for 12-hour shifts, who had dodged drunk customers and learned to scrap in the foster yard, took over. I didn't freeze. I ducked. The hook smashed into the wooden shelf behind me, shattering a jar of turpentine, glass, and chemical smell exploding everywhere. I didn't wait for him to reset. I grabbed a heavy brass cleat sitting on the workbench and swung it with everything I had, slamming it into Gavin's ribs. He grunted, stumbling back, dropping the hook. You little brat, he wheezed, clutching his side. I bolted for the door, but he was fast for an older guy. He lunged, grabbing my ankle, and I went down hard, my chin hitting the floorboards, tasting blood. He dragged me back, his hands clawing at my legs, pulling me toward the open water slip, toward the dark, freezing water below. You're not ruining this for me, he screamed, his face twisted and red. No longer the cool corporate executive, just a desperate, greedy monster. I waited 20 years for this money. I kicked, thrashing, my boot connecting with his face, breaking his nose, blood spurting, but he wouldn't let go. He had me by the waist now, lifting me up, trying to throw me over the edge. I grabbed onto the railing, hanging on for dear life, my feet dangling over the black water. Let go, he yelled, prying at my fingers. Dad! I screamed, hoping, praying. Arthur! One finger slipped. Then two. I looked down at the swirling water, thinking, this is it, this is how it ends. I found him just to lose him. And then, the boathouse doors burst open with a crash that sounded like thunder. Get your hands off her. It wasn't Arthur. It was police. SWAT gear. Weapons drawn. Red laser dots dancing on Gavin's chest. Freeze. Drop her. Now. Gavin froze, eyes wide, looking from me to the dozen officers pouring into the room. He let go of me, dropping me onto the dock, and raised his hands, blood streaming down his face. Behind the police, Arthur walked in. He looked devastated. He looked older than time. He walked right past the guns, right past his brother, and fell to his knees beside me, pulling me into a hug so tight I thought my ribs would crack. I've got you, he sobbed. I've got you, Lily. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. How? I gasped, looking at the police cuffing Gavin, reading him his rights. How did you know? Arthur pulled back, wiping tears from his face. The car, he said. When the brakes failed. I knew. I knew I had them serviced last week. And then the food poisoning. I sent a sample to the lab. It wasn't salmonella, Lily. It was arsenic. Trace amounts. He looked over at Gavin, who was being dragged out, shouting about lawyers, shouting about how it was all a misunderstanding. I didn't want to believe it, Arthur whispered. He's my brother. But I couldn't risk losing you again. So I installed cameras. Everywhere. Even here. I was watching the feed from the house. I saw him come in. I called 911 before he even opened his mouth. I watched Gavin get shoved into the back of a squad car, the flashing lights painting the wet driveway in blue and red. The man who stole my childhood. The man who stole my mother. Gone. The trial was the scandal of the decade. The sterling betrayal, the papers called it. Gavin tried to plead insanity, tried to plead desperation, but the recording from the boathouse, the high-def audio of him confessing to the kidnapping, to the theft, to the murder attempt, it was damning. The jury took less than an hour. He got life without parole. He'll die in a concrete box, which is exactly where he belongs. But that's not the ending. The ending is what happened after. It took time. A lot of therapy. A lot of long nights sitting by the fire with Arthur, just talking, filling in the blanks of 20 years. I told him about the foster homes, about the struggle, about the art I wanted to create. He told me about my mom, about how she loved rain and hated coffee, about how much she wanted me. I didn't take the Sterling name right away. I kept Maya for a while. It felt like I needed to honor the girl who survived. But eventually, I became Maya Sterling. I went back to school, not online this time, but to the best design program in the country. Arthur retired, finally able to let go, handing the reins of the company over to a board of directors he trusted, so he could spend his time gardening and being a dad. And the diner? The rusty spoon? Arthur bought it. He didn't tear it down. He renovated it, kept the charm but fixed the grease trap, and gave it to the owner, Maria, the woman who had hired me when no one else would. But he kept table 4. He put a little brass plaque on it, reserved for family. 3 years later, I'm walking into that diner on a Monday morning. It's raining, of course. I'm wearing a nice coat now, driving a car with working brakes. I walk over to table 4. Arthur is there. He's older, frailer, but his eyes aren't sad anymore. They are bright. "Morning, Dad," I say, sitting down opposite him. "Morning, sweetheart," he smiles, closing his newspaper. "Coffee?" "Please," I say. He pours me a cup.